Strong Principles. I'm Rob Delacruz.
I'm Larry Medina.
I'm Zach Bragg.
I'm Pete Miller.
So on today, we're going to cover the most effective form of exercise / training to build bone density and to put on muscle. So obviously, of course, it's going to be strength training. But there's a couple of contributing factors that go into it. What we see is it's basically how much an hour do you want to get paid? Do you want to make $100, $150 an hour, or do you want to make like $5 an hour? And so all the other forms, I could throw in Pilates, martial arts, different boot camps, whatever you got going on. They all do some form of strength, building muscle, and some form of bone density in there. But it's like, how much do you get per session? A really good strength training program once a week could just about overshadow all week long of / Pilates or yoga or whatever else you got there. And a lot of the factor is, one, it's got to be a decent program. That's first of all, and smart exercises that are put on there, the loads. But it's one is how you can progress it, and it's how the loads are on top of the body is what creates not only strength, but it creates the bone density. And if those loads aren't proper and they're not sit on the body for it to adapt, it's just smaller adaptations.
Yeah. And you got to be able to apply enough stress to the bone to be able to get that bone to grow. Because what happens oftentimes is, and it's specifically, we see it a lot in women too, who end up with bone density issues and they fall. And then the major issues come from, I would say, the hips. I see a lot, the wrists and the shoulders and the spine. But you got to be able to apply enough stress to the bone in order to produce growth. Because then what happens, I believe it's called osteoblasts, is when the cells develop and you're able to create enough stress on that bone to be able to build more density there. And so that stress really only comes from being able to do enough resistance. So if you're just doing things like Pilates or yoga, great programs, great accessory or not even accessory programs, but great programs to add on top of strength. But you got to have that strength program in order to produce enough stress, produce enough resistance to create a difference in density.
I'm glad you went there too, because now we're going there because I really wanted to kind of like move that into, we are seeing a lot of bone density issues, and especially when it comes to women. Yeah. And there's like several contributing factors that happen with that. One of them is what they did when they were younger. Did they do more like impact / type of sports, or was a longer distance / that'll draw them out? Two is, what was their nutrition habits like? Were they exercising a lot and under eating? The other contributing factor that we see is like at a certain age, right before like pre-menopause, what were they eating? What kind of exercises? And did they get on hormones early enough to prevent the loss? Now we have the loss. They're starting to run into issues. We're seeing them a lot and we're helping them with it. But they're coming in. They don't have an understanding. It's like, I'm really active. I've been doing yoga or Pilates several times a week. I go to my HIIT class or I do whatever, but I'm still having issues. Mm-hmm. And we're like, hey, we got to draw this all back because the body is not being loaded proper enough to send a big enough signal for those bones to change and for you to see that, the osteoblast, and for strength. The first thing is we got to see progression. As soon as I see strength, that means bones are getting harder. Those go hand in hand. So that is the most important. The most effective way to do it is load it through strength training. And I'm not saying, because I don't want like everyone to be in an uproar, I'm not saying don't do that other stuff. Yeah. But you gotta strength train.
Yeah. So the way I'm looking at it, right? Because like I've done some jiu-jitsu along with some strength training. So the way I look at all those other things like jiu-jitsu, boxing, they're just supplements to what you're doing. It kind of ties back to what we just, our previous episode of like the pillars, right? This is a big part of your pillar. Yeah.
Yes.
It's just a supplement.
Yeah, and I don't want to say, because like I boxed when I was younger. Like boxing's hardcore. All the martial arts are hardcore. Jiu-jitsu's hardcore. Those are all are. But what are you going to get the biggest bang for your buck? So like if you're a big time, even a pickleball, let's just take that. And I want to play pickleball 3 or 4 times a week. Strength train once a week. Yeah. That's all you need. It's going to make a huge difference. That's going to make the biggest difference at all. We don't even have to do it that much. You can still do all those things, but we still need to strength train. We still need the body. And the body works off of like certain patterns, movement patterns. And what it is when those movement patterns are loaded. So a lot of the other stuff loads at like these weird angles that there's not enough load. And even like with using, I'll use like a megaform or like a Pilates, like there's load and tension on there, but it's not the same thing as certain type of compression on the body. It's just the way gravity works. That's the way we are set up to adapt.
Yeah, you got to be able to apply enough stress to the bone. One of the best lines I've heard, actually, Rob said it. But I was training a woman for quite a while, and she came from she really did a lot of yoga. And her husband actually wanted her to start strength training with him. And they're doing great now. She strength trains twice a week. She also plays tennis. When she came in and was doing yoga and stuff, and she looked good. She if you saw her, you would say, yeah, she's athletic. But when she started strength training a couple months in, Rob came up to her and she's like, you look a lot more capable. You look a lot more durable, a lot more capable. And I was like, that's a great line, because I think a big thing, especially with women, is they don't want to get big, so then they try to draw away from strength training, but they don't realize that the effects that's having internally. And so what happens is you don't get big. All of a sudden you start looking even more athletic. You look more capable. You look more durable. And then you also all the internal changes that are going on. You're a lot healthier, especially affects that bone density. But you got to be able to apply enough stress to that bone. And specifically, too, for anybody who gets a bone density test and sees it, you'll see sometimes it's one side versus the other. I'm training a woman right now who has one hip that, has less bone density than the other hip. And so then there's a compensation that was going on. So that's when unilateral strength comes in. So all these movement patterns that we talk about, you also have to go into unilateral movement of each of those movement patterns. So that way you can assess or fix if there is a bone density issue on either side too. So that's a big one as well.
Yeah, it can be reversed.
And being in the game so long, I've seen people that have done, CrossFit and kickboxing and all of that. And every time I look at a program, what I look for is, are they doing the compound lifts? It always comes back to the compound lifts. Are they squatting, deadlifting, and pressing? Yeah. Because that's where you're going to be able to put your body under the most amount of load, the safest, and get the most bang for your buck. That's where you're going to get that bone density and that. And then you can branch off into your single leg, your single arm, your kind of stuff like that.
Yeah, and I love that Pete said that, because that it is huge. It's not the specific exercise, it's the movement pattern that it's on. And so a lot of times people get caught up in their exercises. Yeah. And it's like, oh, I don't want to put this on my back. And no. It's that movement pattern. How can we load this movement pattern for you and progress it is what's the most effective exercise.
Yeah. And so just, for my own education, I guess. So lifting, right? I know like running, if you're running very specifically, you're impacting your bones, your shins, they're breaking down, they build calcium. How does lifting do that? Like, or is that for another podcast?
No, I can dive into it. One, I'm gonna say running is a lot of impact, and it does do that. But what we see is that people that run long distances tend to kind of undereat to a certain extent for the exercise, and tend to have a lot of issues eventually, especially women, when it comes to the bone density, compared to someone that was playing more like intense stuff like soccer or sprinting. Those create way more, because you got to remember, like longer distance running, it's super repetitive, even though there is an impact on it. And you would be better off doing more like plyometric work and stuff like that would create more. So the way it works with strength training is the body gets loaded. Everything gets a signal to have to deal with this, and it wants to make it easier. That signal goes from picking up ligament tendon strength to going ahead, starting to have the muscles to get stronger. The muscles start applying force to the bone. The bone starts osteoblasting, which it creates. So when you look at a bone, it's like little circles, and they start getting tighter and more dense.
Yes.
And that starts creating it. So basically, it's like gravity that's loaded. If we were in a higher gravity, like atmosphere, we would be thicker. We would be more dense. So it's all kind of related to how gravity works.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a bone forming cell. So you can actually make your bones have better form and get denser. It's those osteoblasts basically. Yeah. But that comes from high stress, high resistance on the muscle, which then, like Rob says, goes to the tendon and then can affect the bone.
And there's several other ways. Like when you're hearing us say like stuff, you can do it with not like a lot of impact on a person. It's just how you progress it, exercises you use, but it's the way how to stress and the movement patterns. Like a lot of times what happens is like if you load things in like weird movement patterns, so I say this all the time, people get pissed. It depends on like what program you come from. They got like some strength, they got some like mobility / flexibility, but it has no real world carryover. Like when it comes to like, hey, can you bend down, pick this up? Can you sit down on here and grab something heavy and stand up with it? Can you push this over on top, like over your shoulders? Can you pull this heavy? It can't do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have real world application. I run into this all the time with people.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Okay, all right, appreciate
Did
that.
I answer that question?
Yeah, no, you did, because I had no idea.
And
So-
go ahead. Pete.
I do have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
Do you see the ability to change this when somebody comes in and they have a lower bone density?
Yes.
How do we fix that?
Yeah. So when we get to bone, because I mean, we're going through it a lot of it. It's like,
Yeah, we're seeing
and-
it a lot lately.
yes. And so we're getting it. They're getting the scan. They don't understand. They're confused. I was active. I do Pilates. I played all these sports my whole life. And the first thing we got to do, because I'm going to say this right now, no form of the best programming that me and Zach can write can overcome low nourishment.
Yeah.
No form can. All right. So that's the first thing. First thing we got to do is we got to deal with, or is your protein up?
Mhm.
And are we given the building blocks for muscle and bone? If we're not doing that, I can slow it down, but I can't reverse it. Some forms, they say you can't reverse it, but we've seen a lot. It depends on where they're at. But once we get, usually we ask for a DEXA scan so that we could kind of see what sides of what's going on. Then first thing we're going to do is going to start working on the fundamental movement patterns. Let's see where we can move that. If we start seeing things like Zach's client with the hip, then we got to like kind of focus on those specific things, because we've had people that like everything else is better, but this one thing's gotten worse.
Yeah.
Well, that shows us that there's some kind of compensation going on there.
Yeah.
And the better and stronger everything else is going, the more they're compensating in that particular area. So we really have to concentrate on that.
Yeah, we've seen it, man. We've seen quite a bit of improvement from it. Even with people of older age. I have another client she's 72 or 73, and she had osteoporosis. She's not anymore, and she strength trains just twice a week, and she does really, really good, man. It made a huge difference. But the first thing that when people approach me, and I think Rob says the same thing, but I tell them, how much sleep are you getting? How much protein are you consuming? And how much water are you drinking a day? And those are the first three pillars that I want you to only focus on. So get enough sleep, make sure your protein's high enough, and then make sure you consume enough water and then get enough hydration. If you're getting those three things and then add on the strength training, it can make a huge difference. But even people who, I don't want to say quote unquote strength training, but even people who are strength training and they're doing some resistance, but they're not doing enough or not doing the right things, we see sometimes that where, okay, this side, this hip or this shoulder, your spine, your bone density didn't improve, but it did everywhere else. So then you want to focus on those targets. And most of the time it means adding more resistance or adding more compound lifts or adding more of those movement patterns that can actually make a difference versus just doing like light accessory work or something you do where you take fives and kind of move around for a little while. You have to add that
you went
load.
into there, because I was just going to dive into that, because people are confused of like what actual real strength training is.
Yes.
And so you'll see them and they're like, well, I'm doing all these moves, but it's like 30 reps here. And it's like, yeah, that's not going to send a signal. On top of
It's
like
not enough stress.
Women have been like kind of advertised really bad for like over the years. Now it's getting a little better, but like it's like they chronically underate, and then they went ahead and then they chronically over exercise.
Yeah.
And those two things are like kind of bad.
Interesting. So the 72-year-old example,
Yeah.
like, did this person have a history of like weight training or no?
Oh,
weight
no,
training?
none at all. Okay, yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, none at all. So she actually had never strength trained, was a little nervous about strength training too. But yeah, and she had a history of bone density issues. And so like this was going on her entire life. And so this was the first time she came into the gym. And so yes, you don't have a history of strength training. That's pretty potent when you first start strength training. But still, even a person who has been, like the other woman who I have that's a client, she had been strength training for a while, but she still saw bone density came down in one area and went up everywhere else. That's just when you kind of have to reroute the program, focus on more heavier resistance, bring those reps down, focus on your rest periods, and then make sure, like Rob's point, their nutrition is good. Because if they're malnourished, doesn't matter, man. You have to make sure that you're getting enough protein in.
I feel like that 72-year-old is my hero.
Oh, she's
yeah.
everybody's hero.
Because like the courage it takes at 72 to come in.
Yeah.
There's some 20-year-olds that won't come in.
Yeah.
Because of
hey, Larry, so what happens is we work close with quite a few physicians and orthopedics and functional medicine doctors. They get that scan, they get to come in. It's like, hey, you're really close to something happening. You need to go see a professional. And they like give the recommendation We get all the tools from them of like, hey, this is the scan, this is where I'm at, this is what I need to do. And then we take it from there. Because usually it's like, there's a red flag, bam, the doctor said, I'm about ready to break something really quickly. And so they start getting scared. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know. And then that's usually what happens.
Yeah.
That's fantastic though. You still got to have the,
it's huge. We're getting a lot of dealing with
that's
that.
Awesome.
And I've been diving in for the last like several months, really, really understand. We already had a good comprehension, but really understanding like, where is this coming from? Because these people are already active. This doesn't make that much sense. And it's like, it boils down to one is the nourishment. That's like number one. Two is just like the wrong type of activity that kind of just did not help them get to where they're at.
Yeah. It is interesting too, because there is this like self-reflective moment with each of my clients that have progressed and seen a lot of improvement. It's interesting because maybe 5 years earlier, there's no way they would have gotten that. And only because it was just not the right time in their life, or there wasn't a self-diagnosis, or the doctor didn't tell them. Normally there's these moments in their life and it's like a fall, or they went to the doctor and they found out that they, had low bone density, or somebody just caught them right at the right time and told them, hey, I've been strength training and they look really good and you should get into it. Or like a podcast like this where they listen to something, like their eyes get opened. But it does take those moments, and then they see that huge progression because their mind was switched to it. So it does take them getting on board, So, but to your point, yes, with the woman before, she had never strength trained, but a friend recommended her to come in. She saw the improvement with her. She wanted to move better on the tennis court. And then she came in, and now it's not even about tennis. Now it's just about life. It's just not falling, taking care of yourself, and making sure that you have, a good internal health.
Yeah, they're more durable.
And I do feel that should be the focus.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, it's such a good feeling to us when people come in and they never worked out. They only did like whatever, like programs, and I already picked on all those enough. And then all of a sudden it's like, they're kind of intimidated. They start doing it. We go real little. It's really easy. It's a lot less than they think. We start progressing it. They start getting stronger. Then all of a sudden they love lifting weights.
Yeah.
They love lifting weights.
And didn't you guys just start a class specifically designed for this? I believe Beth is teaching it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Focus specifically on that kind of person, or that kind of avatar, where they're new to the gym or a little bit afraid of the gym, but they're building up their courage enough to
it doesn't have to be complex.
No.
It's just like these fundamental movement patterns. We strengthen those up. We start looking at things. We start progressing it. We start loading it a little bit, and we go from there.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That is fantastic. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we covered everything, right?
Yeah. So I think just an overview, the biggest things to look at, if you think you're a person that is going to be struggling with this, number one is you get it checked. Go check your bone density. But then number two is make sure your nourishment is good. Make sure you're getting enough sleep. Make sure you're drinking enough water. And then make sure your strength training is good. You gotta,
just real quick.
Yeah.
Just a question. Do you know the name of the scan that you would need to?
Okay. So the kind of like the gold standard, and there's different levels of it. It's called a DEXA scan, DEXA. And so it's a low grade X-ray. And what it shows is like body fat, like adipose outside, and then visceral inside. But it also shows the bone density. And what it does is shows in that bone density scan, it shows its discrepancies from sides. Now there's like stronger levels of that type of scan, but basically that's it.
Yeah. And it's pretty accurate too.
Yeah.
That's a good base. That's
okay.
what you could use. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent.
All right. That was strong principles.
Awesome, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.